everyone, welcome back to the Support the Spectrum channel. Today we're going to be talking about AAC, Augmentative and Alternative Communication. We're going to explain what it is, debunk some myths about it, explain what the do and don'ts of AAC are, and also tell you how you can get an AAC system for your learner for free. There are so many misconceptions about AAC. People say, I want my learner to be using their voice. I want them to be using speech to communicate. I don't want them to rely on an AAC system. But all the research and data shows that AAC directly supports speech, especially for our learners who are having some difficulty grasping verbal speech. They need the visual support. So many people say, well, my learner is minimally speaking. They speak sometimes. They don't need an AAC device. But in reality, they are probably searching for some kind of support that is not just verbal. So for these reasons, I really wanted to make this video. I have such a personal connection to AAC with the language learning journey because I am a speech language pathologist, as many of you know, and I specifically work with neurodivergent communities, but not exclusively. Sometimes I work with a neurotypical client who is just having some type of language delay. And every single time I introduce AAC, the caregivers freak out. The caregivers get concerned that they're going to rely on that AAC. And then after months of me showing them the data and showing them what I do, they see this burst of speaking language from their learner and they get it. So I want you to get it today. Let's get right into it. So first, let's talk about what augmentative and alternative communication is. AAC is any type of communication that is not speech. It can be gestures, it could be sign, it could be texting, it could be images, 2D images, it could be a speech generating device. AAC is everything except spoken language. So in our world, we talk about unaided AAC, and we talk about aided AAC. Unaided is things like gestures, sign language, because you don't need anything with you to communicate with those things, just your body. And aided are the types of AAC where you need to have some external thing with you. And we have low tech, mid tech, high tech. Low tech is example like core boards or PECS. We do not like PECS. I have a whole entire short video on that if you're interested. PECS is not neurodiversity affirming. I can make a whole YouTube video about that if you guys are interested. Leave it in the comments below. Mid-tech, we're talking about things like a go talk, pretty limited type of cause and effect communication system. Don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Maybe we can pop up an image here. And high-tech AAC are speech generating devices that have communication systems on it like Protocol to Go, Touch, Chat, Lamp, stuff like that. And these things are for all communicators, not just non-speaking or limited speaking individuals. What do I mean by that? What do I mean when I say AAC is for everyone? Well, let me ask you, do you use a calendar? Do you use visuals when you're building something from IKEA? Oh my gosh, I need those visuals. Those are all types of AAC. And you know when you're about to literally smack your head against the wall building something from IKEA, but you rely on that type of detailed visual support. That is exactly how it feels sometimes for any communicator. Sometimes we have too much happening in our brain to get verbal language out. Verbal language, spoken language, I should say, is a very complex thing for the brain to do. So giving that support any way that you can actually aids with the process of getting to spoken language. We'll talk about that more in a bit. So right away, let me say that I do favor speech generating devices. All AAC is good. Speech generating devices can use things like text to speech, which is when somebody prefers to use an alphabet board to spell words out. I support that 100%, but I do lean towards speech generating devices because they are easily individualized. They build and grow with time easily. And there's something that can produce that speech for them so that if they're in, a loud area or ordering in a restaurant or something like that, people can really hear them. There's nothing wrong with using core boards. There's nothing wrong with sign language. I incorporate sign language in every session that I do. I just tend to lean towards that type of visual support because it can be truly individualized. It could take real pictures of real life things from that individual's life. It can take real audio that they prefer and record it. So I will just say that throughout this video, I might refer to AAC as an SGD, speech generating device, and that is because that is typically what I recommend. For most learners, there are certainly cases where someone cannot use a speech generating device. Maybe they have a light sensitivity. But let me talk about this first myth that I want to bust right now. There are no prerequisites to getting a speech generating device. There are these myths that somebody has to demonstrate knowledge of cause and effect, that they have to be a certain age, that they have to have strong motor skills. All of those are inaccurate. If your learner has a language delay, they are a candidate for a speech generating device. Say it again. If your learner has a language delay, they are a candidate for a speech generating device. They might be minimally speaking, they might speak sometimes, but if they are not on target, if they're not hitting their milestones, they are eligible for a speech generating device. And even if they are hitting their milestones, they may at times be in dysregulated states where they cannot use verbal communication. They still are a candidate for speech generating devices. And I'm going to tell you how to get a speech generating device for free. Let me be more clear. If you have health insurance and if your learner goes to a speech language pathologist, you can get a speech generating device for free. And here's how you do it. You go to your speech therapist. You say, hey, I need you to go to quicktalkerfreestyle.com and I need you to start a benefit check. So you will have to send your speech language therapist your health insurance information, the back and front of your health insurance card or multiple cards if you have multiple. It's always good to put in the backup. Your speech language therapist will fill out the free benefit check. So that just tells them who that learner is, their date of birth, giving the health insurance information, and giving them your email as well. And almost immediately, AbleNet sends back an email saying you've been approved for a free trial device. Now, depending on the type of coverage you have, you will have a 3-month trial device, you will have a 1-month trial device, or you might not even need a trial device at all. What do I mean by this? So right away, AbleNet will send out a trial device. Your speech language pathologist would have chosen the communication systems that they want that learner to trial. So let's say I have a client, I do the benefit check, I say, send me the trial device that has Protocol to Go and touch chat on it so I can see which one my client responds to better. Then at the end of the trial period, I will write an evaluation report. And if you are a speech therapist, let me tell you, this evaluation report is the easiest evaluation report you will ever write. AbleNet makes it so easy. So I would write the report. I would clarify that my learner wants to go with Protocol to Go, and then they would send out the permanent device. And you get to keep that trial device until the permanent device gets to you. You also sometimes don't even ever have to return the trial device. They just let you keep it. So just so you know, that is accessible to you at any time. There is no excuse not to give your learner access to the most age-appropriate vocabulary and the most robust language system with a keyboard as possible, as soon as possible. I cannot tell you how much research there is to support the fact that AAC supports your language learner's journey through language acquisition better than any other tool Obviously, modeling helps, obviously, implementation helps, and speech therapy helps. But if we do not give learners visual support, there would be a lot less talking people out there. Also, I want to be clear, I am not paid by AbleNet at all. I'm not sponsored by AbleNet. I just am a huge fan, and I'm a speech therapist who uses it all the time. And if you are having trouble starting that process, please contact me on my website, support-the-spectrum.com, under the Contact Us tab. Send me a message. I would love to help you with this. So like I said, there are people who worry that if they introduce an AAC system to their language learner, that language learner will always depend on it and never become speaking. And I do understand that fear. I would like to reframe that. So what you're saying is you would rather your language learner be dysregulated and stuck on motor plans and stuck on what they want to say, rather than give them access to the communication they so desperately want to express because it makes you feel more comfortable. Sorry, someone has to say it. Also, the fact is that AAC does support the language acquisition journey to spoken language. It does more than anything else. It reduces anxiety, it decreases the necessary processing load while those synapses are building up to produce those things verbally, and it builds language even before speech. I use this analogy all the time. When a gymnast is learning a new move, a new flip or something, they will often use trampolines to guide their muscles into learning the type of movement they need to learn. We would never say to a gymnast, you're going to rely on that trampoline. You cannot use that trampoline to get to your end result, which is doing the move independently. Because the reality is, if they don't use the trampoline, you're asking them to go from step 1 all the way to step 10 with no support. Now, when we're talking about language learning, we're talking about building up the necessary motor plans, the necessary synapses, the necessary schemas to communicate. And it's the same. It's not exactly the same, but you know what I mean? This analogy is the same because you're asking that language learner to go from step 1 to step 10 with no support. Give the gymnast the trampoline. Give the language learner the AAC. They need those supports to build up their confidence to be able to get to step 10. All the research for this will be in the description below. Okay, so hopefully at this point I have convinced you that AAC is the way to go. Now, how do you choose the right AAC system for your learner? That is a great question. And this is something that speech therapists have to do all the time when they are writing their evaluation reports for AAC, and it can be really challenging. I really want to validate that for you, because what you're doing is you're observing certain behaviors to basically assume, okay, this language system will be best for you throughout your life. Now, what is really good, especially about AbleNet, is that you can switch it up anytime. Let's say you did the trial device and you were using touch chat, and then after a few months you realize, oh my gosh, they're really not responding to touch chat. Maybe I'll go LAMP. You just call up AbleNet and say you want to switch, and they will switch it for you. No problem. But I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks on how I identify, hey, I think this language system would be best for your learner. When I am trialing, when I'm testing, when I'm observing how much visual attention did they give to this type of system? How long did their gaze stay at that visual to see, is that visual what's best for them? Some people respond to certain colors. Some people respond to the size of the icons. Some people respond more to the sounds that come out when produced. So it does take a lot to identify, oh, you know what? I think they like when the icon is white. They have more visual attention to it. Oh, I think they like when the icon says this really animated thing. And some systems are easier to program what that kind of stuff than others. It's one reason why I really love Proloquo to Go. Again, no affiliation with Proloquo to Go. I just use it all the time because it's really easy to program audio into it. And I especially love it for Gestalt Language Processors, which, by the way, if you are programming a device for a Gestalt Language Processor, it does look very different than programming devices for analytic language processors. And I do have an entire short video about how I program AAC for Gestalt Language Processors. I can also make a long form YouTube video about that if you're interested. So I would say first step is to note how long someone is visually attentive to the different types of AAC you're modeling. So if you are modeling sign to your language learner, do they really look at the sign? Do they really pay attention to sign, or would they pay more attention to an image? Would they pay more attention to an image that is touchable and has a cause and effect, a sound, or opens up into something else? Or would they pay attention more so to an image that is 2D and stay still? Do they prefer to type? Text to speech, type to speech is an incredibly powerful tool. And no matter what AAC system you go with, you really should have a keyboard available to that learner. It is becoming more and more common for someone to prefer the text to speech route of communicating. And it is one that is really good at staying with that individual their entire lives. You also don't necessarily need a special system for text to speech. You can use a 2D board. You can also use your phone. I have one client who prefers to use their phone, which is fine. If that's how they prefer, that's fine. You also may have a loved one who has motor differences. Maybe they are not able to isolate a finger to touch an icon. They might have to activate a speech generating device with their head or with their foot. I did one of my internships at the Western Pennsylvania School for the Blind in Pittsburgh, and I had many students there who had to activate their communication systems through eye gaze, through head, through elbow, through foot even. And there are so many external devices that we attach to other devices to make sure that they can access that language. Now, I will say, if you need help individualizing a device, I completely understand. It is really hard to make a device what you think the person's inner mind is and what you think is a reflection of their inner mind, I mean. So if you ever need help with that, please contact me to book a consultation, because I can help you figure out day to day what they would like to have in their speech generating device, what they should have in their speech generating device, what images they should use, what sounds you should use, and how exactly to program that stuff in. So hit me up. And just a reminder that trial and error is okay. Sometimes I fly when I try something new in therapy. Sometimes I flop, and that's normal. Okay, so at this point, I've convinced you that AAC is best. I've told you how to get it for free. I told you what is important to keep an eye out for when choosing the right speech system. Now let me tell you, you could do everything right up until this point, and then guess what? Your language learner doesn't want to use the AAC. I'm laughing because it's so common. Most of my clients came in because their caregiver said, I just can't get them to use their AAC. They don't want to use it. And my job is to make sure that they do. But let me tell you how I do that. I look for the why. Why do they want to communicate? What are their favorite things to communicate? Do they like to joke around? Do they like to listen to different types of sounds? Do they like to look at their favorite characters? Do they like to express their feelings? All of these things are really personal, right? I think one of the biggest mistakes that caregivers make, or other people on the team who are modeling on the device, the biggest mistake they make is that they're modeling the language that they want the learner to communicate. And that's okay. I will say that's okay. It's kind of neutral. It's not bad to model any type of language, but it is kind of bad not to model the language that really motivates that learner to communicate. Communication is deeply personal. We only want to talk about the things we want to talk about. If you told me to set up this camera and talk about sports, I'd rather sit in my hot car with a broken AC for an hour. You understand? I'm motivated to communicate about these things because I deeply care and are interested in these things. And sometimes I deeply care and am interested in cooking or my memes or 30 Rock. I love 30 Rock. And sometimes all I want to do is talk about 30 Rock. So what you have to make sure you do first, if your learner is not using their AAC system, use it only for fun things. Do not model the mundane. Do not model the routine. Do not model the I want, I need, I see, I hear. Boring. Model the fun language that they enjoy. Animal sounds, bodily sounds, reptiles, feelings, their favorite characters. What else? The scripts, the stuff that they script. Even if you don't know what it means, program it into the device. Even if you have no idea what the deeper meaning behind a certain sound in a video that they play 1,000 times over is, you don't have to know, just program it in there because you are motivating them to use it. And just because it is not functional language to you does not mean that it is not deeply meaningful to them. So please, if you really want your learner to use their AAC system and to start interest with it, you have to do the language that they are interested in. And of course, model, play with them. And as time goes on, then you can introduce some more structured language stuff. But really those beginning stages of just having them be attentive to it is all about modeling what they enjoy and programming what they enjoy. Characters, shows, sounds, etc. Now that you know what AAC is, you're convinced that it's the best thing for your speaker. You know how to get it for free. You know how to pick out the best system for them. You know how to get them motivated to use it. Now we're going to talk about some things you really need to avoid when using an AAC system. Number one is if you're using a speech generating device on an iPad or something, do not use that iPad for anything other than their AAC system. I don't want to see them on YouTube. I don't want to see them on Google Images. I don't want to see them. No, that system is their voice and they should only see it as their voice. Nobody else in their life should be, oh, let me look it up on the iPad. Nope, not appropriate. You wouldn't use someone's voice to, edit an image for your Instagram. Crazy. I've seen it happen. Where a caregiver said, oh, well, his brother uses it to play when he's not using it. No, sorry. You have to get another iPad for that. You cannot use that person's voice to play in some other capacity. So number one is only their voice. Number two is make sure it is always accessible to them. Make sure it is charged. Make sure it is with them always. I don't want to hear about a little bathroom break where you didn't take it. No, that's not fair, because what if there's something that you really needed to express in the bathroom? You have to make sure that it is accessible to them always. The next one is no deletion. As long as the vocabulary is age appropriate, please do not delete language off of it. Don't delete the language they stem on. I understand sometimes you don't want them to be hitting that button when you're out a million times. I understand, but it's not for you to decide. That is their voice. You have to let them use it. And it's really probably regulating to them to stem on language. So please don't take it away. It's actually abusive, honestly. It's like someone putting tape over your mouth and saying, you can't use your voice. It's crazy. Another one is don't force spoken language. Don't say, what is this? What is this? What is this? How old are you? How old are you? How old are you? Say. No, stop. Spoken language is not more important than their voice that is an AAC system. It's just not. Please don't do that. We talked about always giving them access to a keyboard. That is so important. Always giving them access to as much age-appropriate vocabulary as possible is so important. And also presuming competence. So let's say you modeled a certain phrase on the AAC system and you think, oh, they didn't understand me. Well, if you're using the visual support, if you're using gesture, if you're, using your verbal language, most likely that person did understand you. They might need some additional processing time or whatever the case, but you don't have to keep providing cues. Presume that they understand. Also, if they are using their device, presume that they are trying to communicate something. Even if you don't understand what it is, they might be putting two random words together and you might say that means nothing. Most likely it doesn't. Presume that they understand that they are trying to communicate something. I remember seeing this video once of this learner who really liked this one song and was consistently requesting the song by putting two unrelated words together to request the song. So I'm so sorry. I wish I remember what the song was, but let's say the song was We Will Rock You or something. He was like putting two icons together that was unrelated to We Will Rock You, but when you put them together and you had it do the speech output, it sounded like a lyric from the song. So he was just doing his best to try to, because it wasn't programmed in his device, that's the first issue, program his favorite song to the device, you know, but he was just trying to compensate. Like those two words didn't mean nothing. They meant something very clear. Okay, and then some final things I wanted to say today was make sure you collaborate with the families and with all the support team so that you're all on the same page about AAC. Make sure that you include AAC in IEPs. If your language learner is an AAC user, that should be in every single goal that they have in their IEPs, that they could answer whatever questions or do whatever task with all forms of communication. Make sure you're revisiting and updating the AAC regularly as they grow, and be sure to celebrate all forms of communication. And that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please share it with anyone who needs this information. Be sure to like and subscribe. Contact me on my website if you want to schedule a consultation. I would love to help you with AAC implementation. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. I absolutely love you guys. You're the best.